it's interesting to me to see how people go about the attempt to put these horizons into OmniFocus or to not. And I think these higher horizons, there's something that can be extremely helpful if you have a need and if you have the time to define them. And if you get into GTD and the longer you spend with it and the more you start to trust your system, the more you'll find that you have a need for these higher horizons. And I think that comes through in a lot of what David Allen talks about. But for me, I have found that, this is again a scenario where these help me manage and help me understand the broader system that I have in place. So I want these in OmniFocus. So that's why they're here. And I don't overcomplicate this. This is an area where you can easily spend way too much time making this too complicated, making sure that projects or areas of responsibility apply to certain tasks within those horizons. And it just makes no sense to me. I think there's some value potentially in it, but the gains that come from being able to directly correlate and automatically correlate those two things are very small in comparison to simply doing a few minutes in a review every week or every month. It doesn't seem to add a whole lot, in my opinion. So what I do in this particular case, I want to start at the top and work my way down. So obviously you can see I've got a folder here for guidance, and I've got 3 projects for each horizon. And I do that simply because I like to keep them separate. You could drop them all into a single project called guidance and then just name them, right? Like 5, 4, whatever. And I think that could work. I just like the clarity of seeing 3 different projects. But ultimately, the way I have these set up, as you can see over here, is I do have them assigned to a specific context called horizons, and it's simply there to help me keep these things separate. Again, that particular context is on hold. That way it doesn't clutter up the remainder of my available actions. And if I scroll down here, something you'll see is that the review cycle for Horizon 5 is once a month. And Horizon 4 in this case is the same. I've got it set up at the exact same structure. However, Horizon 3, I run that one weekly. So I do that one during my weekly review. And you can see that because I'm using the review cycle here, these automatically show up within the review perspective whenever I get there. So it's pretty simple to set it up that way. And then it's a way to say, okay, at this cycle, I want to go over my overall life mission. This cycle, I want to look over my upcoming 6 to 9 month goals. And it's a way to just automatically have those come back into view. So that's why I set it up that way. It's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. So let's go into Horizon 5 here. As you can see, I've only got one task in this particular project, and it's to help others get better at technology and live a fuller life. And that's the best I've been able to do to narrow down my life mission. And it's pretty vague. That's intentional, but to me, that's my purpose and why I'm here on this earth. And that's why I've got that in here. And you would think it's something that's pretty easy to just, it's something you just know, but I like having it in here, and it gives me a little bit of clarity just being able to look at it and see, here's what my life mission is. And because I have it show up once a month, I'm able to just review that once a month and make sure that everything else is going on correctly throughout the remainder of my system. But ultimately, that is what guides absolutely everything else that I have inside my system. Now, if we go down to Horizon 4, now we're going to start to break this down a little bit. And some of what I've got here applies directly to Horizon 5. Some really doesn't. But I can always get to it in some way. That's what I've noticed. Is sometimes these apply directly and it's obvious to see. And in other cases, it's a little bit difficult to see it from the outside. But the way I look at these is these are about my 3 to 5 year goals. So these are what I'm looking at whenever I'm setting direction in the long term. And what I see here is I'd like to upgrade our house sometime soon. I'd like to get my pilot's license. I want to go flying, and I want to help people get better at productivity. And I have a goal to reach 1,000 people. And it's hard to track that number, so I won't actually know detailed, but I can get rough numbers, and I know on average how far I am with that. And something that I've seen is that something like upgrading a house can allow me to produce better quality content that I'm doing for the web. But at the same time, it also helps me have a better place to bring people into the house to help do some coaching that I've started to get into. So there are some opportunities to use that in light of that mission that I've got in Horizon 5. So a couple of them, The pilot's license, that's kind of a fun, I just like to do it thing, but that's a goal that I'm shooting for. And some of the other things that I do in Horizon 3 will help me get up to that. But ultimately, Horizon 4 is those 3 to 5 year goals that I'm shooting for. And I like to break those down whenever I get into Horizon 3 and start to look at, okay, in the next few months, next 5 to 6 months, what exactly is going on? And this is how I spell those out specifically, is I put down the month that I want to do something and then spell it out. Again, I start those with a verb just like I do with the project and task titles, but I like to keep these things in order as far as when they're going to be completed. That way, whenever I'm looking at this weekly, if I know that, I've got 3 or 4 months on here, but I know what I want to do after that, I can start to spell that out here. Now, I've cleared out some of the project titles here because some of these things I don't even know if I'm going to follow through with them, but that's my plan currently, is to follow through on some of these things. So I don't know if they'll actually come to light or not, but it's at least a plan that I'm shooting for, and it at least gives me a trajectory to work towards. And I can use this as I'm choosing daily tasks. I can use this as I'm picking projects to work on for a week. It's a way for me to see what's coming up in the next 6 months. But I keep it simple. It's very basic as far as how I want to use these horizons, but I like to keep them inside OmniFocus. Again, I keep the context on them to where they're kept on hold so they don't show up in the other action lists that I have going on. And then I take advantage of the review cycle for them. So that way they show up in the review perspective, and I know that I'm looking at these in the right intervals. But ultimately, that's the whole system, is I manage all of those higher horizons within OmniFocus so that I keep my entire task and life goals in one system.